This is a life-or-death gambling match to prevent cheating. Every participant must strip off their clothes. Men and women are only allowed to wear skin-tight underwear. To pull off tricks and deception in this environment, you not only need excellent technique but also extraordinary courage. Because just a slight mistake will lead you to the abyss of no return. DeGil has the blood of a gambling master flowing through his veins. From a young age, he demonstrated outstanding gambling skills, easily playing until he sweated with people his age. One gambling game brought him everything. When he was young, he bet toys, and when he grew up, he bet money. Gradually, he built his standing. One day, during a regular winning streak, he met his opponent's younger sister, a girl who made DeGil fall in love at first sight, Mina. Mina, pure and innocent, doesn't have a good impression of people addicted to gambling like him. Facing his crude flirting, she gently responded with a high-pitched soprano. It made DeGil take a beating, but it was worth it to get a backward glance and smile from the beauty. DeGil's uncle is a reckless gambler without brains or technique. Of course, he was set up and lost everything. Initially, he planned to borrow DeGil's name to make a fuss and get his money back. But the casino boss and his gang spectacularly dealt with him. Fortunately, DeGil arrived in time to save his uncle. He got into a fight with them. During the chaos, he intended to use a knife to attack DeGil, but accidentally stabbed himself. DeGil was horrified because he had offended someone he shouldn't have, so he only had the option of fleeing. Before leaving, he ran to find Mina and promised that after earning money, he would definitely ride 5 colored clouds to marry her. Mina couldn't help but find this foolish guy adorable. DeGil began his journey as a fugitive to Seoul, seeking out his cousin and trying to make it in the gambling world. Thanks to his delicious instant noodle cooking skills and flattering words for the boss Jang, DeGil successfully got a chance to work as a kitchen assistant at his casino. Under his cousin's guidance, DeGil, from a small rural area, was overwhelmed by the scene before him. This place was filled with the scent of money everywhere. Even when the police came to inspect, the gamblers could retreat in an orderly fashion. The casino, which had just been full of colored lights and luxurious, decadent life, immediately became harmonious. However, to completely get rid of these government officials, small tricks were essential. In the days that followed as a kitchen assistant, DeGil relied on his excellent speaking skills and outstanding appearance. He navigated the casino smoothly. He quickly got the opportunity to replace the fixed cheating card player in the casino because of his excellent performance. These customers lost so much that they wished they were dead. Wave after wave of customers, under DeGil's superb technique, fully experienced the terror of real life. Jang earned more and more money. DeGil's status gradually surpassed even his cousins. His residence also moved from the simple basement to a high-end apartment on the upper floors. This crying girl is always a target customer of the casino. She is a wealthy widow who has lost a lot of money here. Relying on her beautiful appearance, she asked DeGil to teach her how to play cards. As a result, DeGil indulged in a life of pleasure and debauchery. Who knew that Jang was preparing a trap to sweep away all of Wu's wealth? The people participating in this plan included the short-haired girl Choi, DeGil, and Sang. They planned to gradually have Wu lose money, making her completely immersed, just like the saying, throw out a sprat to catch a mackerel, and then finally cast the net to catch the fish in the final gambling game. Unable to bear watching her fall into the trap without being able to escape, DeGil told her the truth. Unexpectedly, she still came, her face not showing any panic, making DeGil feel very confused. After winning a few rounds, Wu directly increased the bet to 2 billion. Such a large amount of money also meant that it was time to cast the net. Everyone began to implement tricks, conveying information to each other, implying that DeGil should pull the net. The short-haired girl used the excuse of borrowing a lighter to block Wu's view. Song helps change cards. When the cards are revealed, except for Wu, Song's cards are the largest, which is a pair of 6s. Everyone seems to be sure of victory, waiting to take all of Wu's assets. Unexpectedly, Wu has a pair of 9s, meaning she is the ultimate winner. Jang is horrified because he bet all his money on the trap. Losing this game means the casino is bankrupt. Unlike the shock of others, DeGil's eyes are full of confusion. He and his cousin are unemployed, and Wu disappears without a trace. Under the guidance of his cousin, the two brothers come to a casino to make a living. Dong-sik is the boss here. In a gambling game arranged by him, DeGil meets Mina again. The girl who was originally pure and hated gambling as an enemy has now completely changed. What exactly happened to her? Dong-sik, with a lewd expression, reached for Mina's leg. When asked if the two knew each other, Mina decisively denied it. Dae-gil understood and denied it as well. The gambling game begins. Dong-sik loses several games in a row. In the end, Mina doesn't even dare to breathe, enduring the unpleasant smell. Mina stood up and opened the window to breathe the air. The cousin and Dae-gil were attracted by her long, slender white legs. In the following gambling games, Dong-sik seemed to be possessed by the god of gambling, winning every game. Dae-gil loses one game after another. The amount of debt becomes increasingly large. In the end, he can only sign a promissory note, promising to pay 80 million per month. In fact, Dong-sik is Jang's person. After the casino went bankrupt, Jang discovered that Dae-gil had a shady relationship with Woo. He insisted that Woo's big win must have been helped by him secretly. Therefore, Dong-sik's gambling game was only to take revenge on him. Before long, the 1-month deadline arrived. Dae-gil was completely unable to pay the debt, and he had to pay an extremely high price. Not only was he brutally beaten, but he also had one of his kidneys removed. Locked in the warehouse in Dong-sik's basement, he is no different from a dog. Facing someone who cruelly harmed him like this, the only thing Dae-gil can do is stare at him with hateful eyes. In the following days, his life becomes extremely miserable. He can only hide in the 24-hour convenience store with a rumbling stomach. He picks up a pickled radish that others haven't finished eating to eat. At this time, Mina found him and fed him. She took out a bag of money and told him to take the money and run away. Then she told him a shocking truth. That day, Mina deliberately opened the window to reveal her underwear in order to attract Dae-gil's attention. In this way, the cousin and Dong-sik could easily exchange cards. Knowing that the person he trusted most had betrayed him, and after Mina had exhausted her efforts to save his life, Dae-gil completely collapsed. The only way to take revenge is to start over. Dae-gil took the money and left this place. But because his hand had been injured, he was caught red-handed as soon as he started cheating. According to the rules of the industry, if he is caught on the spot, his right hand will be crippled. At this time, the benefactor in his life appeared, Kwang. Kwang not only helped him out of the difficult situation but also, while verbally complaining, actually accepted him as a disciple. He taught him how to judge the psychology of his opponents by their facial expressions, especially the eyes which never lie. When they see what they like, their pupils will dilate quickly. Conversely, they will contract immediately. So that Dae-gil could learn and use it immediately, he led him everywhere to make money. Even if the opponent used all kinds of tricks, Kwang could break them in the blink of an eye. This pretend to be a pig to eat the tiger trick helped the two earn a lot of money. Kwang was very satisfied with Dae-gil's understanding, so he began the path to making money. That day, when the two returned with their spoils, they happened to see the cousin being beaten. Dae-gil angrily grabbed a wooden stick and pressed him against the wall, questioning why he wanted to harm him. The cousin also frankly admitted that it was only because he was jealous of Dae-gil earning too much money without sharing it with him. But he also suffered the consequences of his actions and was betrayed by Choi. Dae-gil also learns that the trap set for Woo was actually aimed at the casino boss, Jang. Woo is also a cheat, and approaching Dae-gil was only part of the plan. Because only in this way, if Woo won, the boss would only blame Dae-gil and would never think that it was Choi who cooperated with others. These words almost collapsed Dae-gil's worldview. It turned out that he had always been taken advantage of. In sadness and anger, Dae-gil also learns that Mina had helped him but was sold by Dong-sik to Chong-sik, who was the person Dae-gil had accidentally injured at the beginning. Dae-gil took a large amount of money to try to rescue Mina, but Chong-sik clearly wouldn't easily hand her over. Currently, Mina is in charge of entertaining gamblers at the gaming table. Chong-sik arranged a gaming table for the two of them to sit face-to-face and play a game. The right hand of both people is locked at the same time. Dae-gil can only take Mina away if he wins, but he has to chop off his hand. Chong-sik's intention was actually to chop off Mina's hand. However, in the verbal agreement, he carelessly did not specify clearly, leaving a loophole. If Mina won, Dae-gil would have to chop off his right hand, but Dong-sik's debt could be reduced by half. The gambling game begins. There is no doubt that Dae-gil won. Chong-sik was shocked to see that he only wanted to keep his hand. Unexpectedly, at this time, Dae-gil picked at every word, acting as fast as lightning, took the dagger and stabbed it hard into his right hand, and quickly took the promissory note in Chong-sik's pocket to use it to light a cigarette. Chong-sik was furious, but still said that the stab debt was not counted. At least he had to pay an additional 500 million. Otherwise, Mina would have to stay and continue to sell herself. In the critical situation, Kwang appeared and took all his property to save the two people. Kwang told Dae-gil that he had ruined his right hand many years ago, and Chong-sik was his grandson. If he doesn't quit gambling, it's best to pray he doesn't meet him at the betting table. After everything was settled, Mina began to talk about the past years. A few years ago, she often went to the casino to scold her gambling-addicted brother, but unexpectedly, she was noticed by Dong-sik, a plan to trap his brother and make him owe Chong-sik a large sum of money. Dong-sik seduced her to work in the casino to pay off her brother's debt, but he put drugs in her water and violated her. After that, Mina became a tool for Dong-sik to cheat. Her brother couldn't get revenge and had to go to jail. After hearing everything, Dae-gil only had heartache left, and the two came together. Together with Hong, they strolled around the city shopping like a family, dreaming about a bright future. But Dong-sik didn't intend to let them go. He sent guards to take Mina away. Dae-gil stepped forward to block the guards so Kwang could take Mina and escape. Dae-gil was no match and was knocked to the ground. Kwang and Mina fled to a warehouse. Mina tried to attack with bricks, but it was completely useless. In the end, she was knocked unconscious. Kwang could only muster all his strength, hug the bodyguard, and jump down. When Dae-gil ran over, his body had been pierced by steel bars, and he was dying. He helplessly knelt beside him, tears streaming down his face. Before his last breath, he told Dae-gil not to avenge him. Dae-gil couldn't accept his tragic death. His screams echoed throughout the night sky. After that, he didn't listen to Kwang and Mina and began to prepare a revenge plan. Mina went to the prison to meet her brother, who would be released in 2 months. She got the contact information of a gambling expert, Paru. The two immediately went to Paru's house and met Joe, who worked with him. Under the temptation of a 10 billion reward, the first plan began. The main targets were Song, Choi, and the short-haired girl, who had betrayed Dae-gil and Jang. First, Paru pretended to be a rich man, approached Song and played cards with her. Then Joe sneaked into her house and stole all her money. Song would definitely go to Paru to borrow at high interest rates, but he would definitely refuse. Next, Mina played the role of a rich person, deliberately showing that she was addicted to gambling but played very badly, letting Song win happily. Then, in the final and extremely large game, they win all of her assets. After the celebration, it's Choi's turn. Joe pretends to be an employee to approach him. Paru pretends to be a police officer to approach the person next to Choi and deliberately investigates him, making them misunderstand that Choi has a problem and thereby canceling their cooperation with him. At this time, he bribes Song and deliberately reveals that the rich young lady is very bad at playing cards. After Joe shuffles Choi's cards, the gambling game begins. After a few rounds, Choi and the short-haired girl, because of their carelessness, owed more than 20 billion. At this time, it was Jang, the person who had been harmed years ago, who took action. Without any hesitation, he sold both of them to a doctor who specializes in trading organs. This revenge after the harvest is indeed gratifying. On Dae-gil's side, he found Woo, whom he had not seen for a long time. He wanted to cooperate with her, using her attractiveness to overthrow Dong-sik together. After all, any man that Woo targets cannot escape her grasp. But Dong-sik, the deep and unpredictable one, refused Woo's offer to cooperate. Han was so angry that she couldn't help but sarcastically say, "Are you a eunuch?" In fact, Dong-sik had already heard about the incident with Choi. He hid all the money in a house in the suburbs and then returned. He had no idea that Han had attached a tracking device to his belt with just a touch of her hand. Dae-gil and his group followed closely behind. After taking half of the money, they reported him. Dong-sik thus became a wanted man on the front page of the news the next day. After everything was over, Woo came to the agreed location to receive her share and even wanted Dae-gil to go with her, but he told her that he had washed his hands of it all. However, after receiving the money, the expression on Woo's face became incomprehensible. Dae-gil and Mina were planning a trip abroad. Unexpectedly, Paru and Joe fell into Dong-sik's hands and were beaten to the point where their flesh and blood were mixed together. Dae-gil brought a suitcase of money to make a deal with Dong-sik. Money for people. Unexpectedly, Dong-sik tried to attack from behind, but Dae-gil discovered it. A fire burned the money in the suitcase, which had already been soaked in gasoline. While Dong-sik was putting out the fire, Dae-gil quickly left this place. Unexpectedly, after the fire was extinguished, he discovered that only the top bill was real money. He angrily jumped into the car and chased after them madly. After a life-or-death high-speed chase on the road, Mina finally escaped from him. Unexpectedly, Dong-sik suddenly rammed his car head-on and took the money in the trunk. But because of this accident, Mina, who was pregnant, unfortunately had a miscarriage. The scene switches to Dong-sik giving Woo a sum of money. Turns out that all of this was arranged by Woo. She helped Dong-sik arrange a passport to escape, and Dong-sik helped her deal with Dae-gil and Mina. Assuming that everything was over, when he went to get the passport, he was ambushed by thugs who faked the documents, put a bag over his head, and beat him almost to death. This, it turns out, was also directed by Woo. She gave the thugs a tip and turned around to leave, but the thugs refused to let him go. Unexpectedly, Han had already become friends with Chong-sik. The energetic guy escaped smoothly. They originally intended to take this money to find Chong-sik's uncle. But after putting the money in the trunk, he threw Han, who had been drugged, out of the car. When she woke up, she knew that she could hardly keep her life. She packed her bags and prepared to flee, but was blocked by Dong-sik, who had just woken up from the landfill. Chong-sik brought the money to Akui alone. But the old fox Akui, after pouring out all the money and cutting open the suitcase, indeed discovered the tracking device that Dae-gil had placed. Just as he mentioned, he led Mina's brother, who had just been released from prison, to him. Dae-gil said bluntly that the purpose of this trip was to find Dong-sik. At this time, Akui knew that this money was not money won, as Chong-sik had said. At this time, Dong-sik also came to demand money. He said that he only wanted to take the money quietly and then leave. Dae-gil couldn't keep his calm at that time and just wanted to tear this name to pieces on the spot. But after all, this was Akui's territory. Akui suggested that they play a gambling game, betting all of their property and lives. The final decision of life and death rests in the hands of the winner. However, Dong-sik's ultimate goal is only to get back the money that belonged to him. To show fairness, everyone must prepare an additional 10 billion as a bet. Thus, everyone went to collect money separately. Dong-sik sought out a doctor who specializes in selling organs to borrow money, and the collateral was Woo. To protect herself, Han struggled and shouted that she wanted to be his assistant. Dae-gil, having avenged Jang, naturally had his full support. He also told Dae-gil that he must return safely. Losing money didn't matter. Looking at his palm lines, he said that as long as Dae-gil was willing to quit gambling, he would have a long life. Very quickly, the time came. The gambling masters in the movie all gathered in one place. After everyone sat down in turn, Akui suggested that everyone could request to prevent anyone from cheating. Dong-sik suggested that everyone take off their clothes to play. Woo suggested that a new deck of cards be changed every 10 games to prevent anyone from marking the cards. Mina suggested that only one hand be used to play cards. Dae-gil said he wanted to drink alcohol, while Chong-sik announced that whoever cheated would have their hand chopped off. Thus, everyone faced each other frankly, wearing underwear, and sat at the gambling table. Through each round of the game, the trash can was full of discarded cards, indicating that many games had been played, and Dong-sik was always in the dominant position. Woo hinted that Dae-gil pay attention to Dong-sik's glasses. Dae-gil remembered what Kwang had taught him. The eyes of a gambling master, if they wanted to see, they would see. Sure enough, Dae-gil saw the abnormality on the card. Before he could expose it, Akui had already recognized Dong-sik's trick. After verification, Han, who brought the cards, was kicked out. Akui ordered his subordinates to bring new cards. This gambling game seemed to have no end. At this time, Akui began to mock Dae-gil's master, Kwang. That year, when Akui ruined his right hand, Kwang was so scared that he lost control. Dae-gil's eyes immediately turned red, and his emotions became agitated. A new gambling game began. Dae-gil was responsible for shuffling the cards and began to cheat. However, Akui saw it clearly. At this time, Dae-gil was holding 3 cards in his hand. When he asked Mina to light a cigarette for him, his hand reached towards Mina's buttocks. Akui struck first, using the glass of wine to cover Dae-gil's cards, using all his money and his life to bet that Dae-gil's cards were a pair of 10s. Dong-sik also bet all his money and his life, betting that there were cards in Mina's underwear. After everyone had played a big game, Dae-gil went from his initial state of tension to relaxation, mocking Akui for using this trick in the past, resulting in the loss of his right hand. At this time, Akui knew that Dae-gil in front of him was KN's grandson. It's time to reveal the cards. There is no doubt that Akui lost. Dong-sik insisted on checking the underwear. The result was naturally nothing. The two won a double victory. Mina's brother stood up to get the money, but Chong-sik pulled out a gun to stop them from leaving. Mina's brother quickly shot and broke Chong-sik's right hand. When the fighting situation between the two sides became tense, Dong-sik took an axe and chopped at the power switch. In the darkness, a few gunshots rang out. Dong-sik fell into a pool of blood. The three escaped. Mina's brother was also injured in the abdomen, but he turned his back and betrayed his sister and Dae-gil, taking the money and leaving. 10 days later, the news reported that Mina's brother drove a car and scattered a large amount of cash on the street. In the end, because of excessive blood loss, he died in the mountains. Mina hugged her brother's urn, unable to understand what had happened. When asked where the card from that day went, Dae-gil admitted that he had swallowed it. At this time, the two received a letter that her brother had sent to Mina before the accident. Based on the map he left behind, the two found a large bag of money covered in blood. It turned out that the brother deliberately robbed the money only to keep them from being involved with the money. Scattering money everywhere was only to prevent Akui and his gang from chasing Dae-gil and Mina. Now that Mina's brother is dead and the money is scattered all over the street, Mina and Dae-gil can use the hidden money to start a new life. Although Dae-gil inherited the skills of his uncle, he, like his uncle, completely gave up gambling. Thank you for watching.